in Minnesota. That's according to Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services leader Dr. Mehmet Oz. Joining us now to discuss is Jeffrey Tucker. He's founder and president of the Brownstone Institute. He's also the author of multiple books, including Life After Lockdown. Jeffrey, it's great to see you, and thank you for joining this evening. I want to get your initial reactions to this stoppage of payments.
It's about time. This is far too little, far too late, but at least we've got this much. At the very minimum, taxpayers expect that their money will not be going to fraud and abuse and thrown away. And we are overwhelmed with the amount of evidence that so much abuse has been happening. We've been flooded with stories from these two states in particular. So I just have to congratulate Dr. Oz and RFK for at least taking this kind of action. We need much more of this. Sometimes I think that we can get a little cynical because we watch all these things on social media. We see terrible things happening, but we don't know what to do. Sometimes we ask the question, how long is this going to go on? Are there ever going to be any prosecutions? Are we just going to keep the system going? Am I just supposed to sit here on my sofa and be outraged all the time? So yeah, there's something very satisfying about seeing finally the decisive action. Cut it off, end it, show us you using the money efficiently, then we'll talk.
Now, Jeffrey, what are some of the tactics used by the fraudsters that has RFK and Dr. Oz suspicious of the legitimacy of these claims?
Well, the system is very easy to game, and people are very clever. We saw this during the COVID period that once the stimulus checks and the loans went out to business, people found that the system's very leaky. You can just lie on your forms, and since the AI and these data systems are running everything, people have figured out very easily how to game the systems, and they're doing it now. And it's citizens and illegal immigrants, especially. So it's really quite a shock. And then you have the other problem is that that with the political differences in this country, some blue states think that they're entitled to just run these kinds of fraudulent systems, let them run wild, not police them. They feel like they're getting away with something. And they resent the fact that the Trump administration is coming in asking for accountability. And if they're not going to clean up their act, I don't know what else you can do. It seems to me, in the end, these systems are going to be run by money. If you cut off the money, that's the only way we're going to get some accountability here. So I think this is a wonderful step. I hope it's just the beginning. I would like to see this kind of severe sanctions. We're not talking about criminal punishments. We're just talking about give us some evidence that this money is being used as it's intended, and then we'll restart it. But we can't just keep throwing good money after bad forever and expect anything to change, because things are not going to change until the federal government stands up for taxpayers and says to these states, you've got to clean up the rolls or else this program can't continue. At the very least, that's what we can expect. So I'm as happy as I am about this. I think it's thrilling that it's something. It's too little, it's too late. We need to 10x, 100x, 1000x this kind of approach to government. I know that RFK and Oz and even Trump themselves they're afraid of taking these kind of what the mass media describes as extreme actions, but they're not extreme actions. Taxpayers appreciate this kind of thing, and I think it shows a certain boldness. I hope that this is the beginning of a lot more of this kind of activity that we're going to see over the next year and two.
Yeah, just basic elements of general accounting that you'd see in the private sector, applying it to the government and the way it operates. And you mentioned maybe the tip of the iceberg, or it's just getting started. It's $1 billion for two states. How big do you think the problem is?
Well, that's the big issue. And initially, you remember that when Elon Musk's Doge got going, he thought that he could save as much as $2 trillion in waste, fraud, and abuse. And then as they got into it, they found that there were a lot of barriers to cutting things that they did not expect. They ran the construct of the washing machine is designed to keep the thing going, right? So they didn't anticipate how difficult it would be to cut the budget. I think Elon himself said that saving $2 trillion, which he's convinced that there were $2 trillion in waste, fraud, and abuse in government spending, and that we could nearly just almost balance the budget by getting rid of the fat and the excess and the fraud. But he said that it proves, he thinks it would be much easier to get to Mars and and become an interplanetary species than it is to cut the government budgets following waste, fraud, and abuse. So he kind of washed his hands of it. But if we could redouble our efforts, I feel sure $2 trillion. I think that probably in a just world that would be easy. And as you say, every private company has to have outside auditors. They're not even allowed to. If you're a public company, you can't even audit your own books. You have to have third-party auditors who themselves are audited. So you have multiple checks. And if there are problems, your stock price collapses, stockholders get mad, customers get mad. There's accountability. But in government, we have these systems that nobody really understands. Nobody really has a stake in controlling them. Part of the whole idea of the American system is that we elect politicians to represent our interests. And our interests, we have a strong interest in making sure that our money is being spent well. And then they exercise control over the bureaucracies and then insist on accountability. So that's the way the system is supposed to work. But for many, many decades, even going back a lot longer than that, the system has not worked. So I think the Trump administration is trying at last to bring some real accountability and doing something other than just talking about it or issuing reports, which is all what I've ever seen in my political lifetime. I see lots of reports, lots of public outrage, but what happens then? So I think that today is a very big day in terms of accountability and the march towards a more honest government systems. Because we got an announcement today. You know what? You're being cut off. This is what you have to do. Any parent who's
Right.
Raised a profligate
Right.
son who's misusing the credit card in college knows what you have to ultimately do, and it's the hardest thing you have to do, which is cut them off. And that's what we saw happen today. And maybe this will inspire some change.
Well, perhaps a shot across the bow by RFK Jr. and Dr. Oz. We'll have to wait and see. Jeffrey Tucker, thanks for joining us this evening.
My pleasure. Thank you.
In a hearing on Capitol Hill today, examining whether the Smithsonian Institution presents American history through a biased lens. Here's NTD's Fiona G.
The many examples of politicization of the museum are well documented in the comprehensive report the White House Domestic Policy Council recently issued on July 4th, the nation's 250th anniversary. The report makes clear that the museum's woke exhibits and materials reflect a broader vision held by the museum leadership.
That was Chairman Tim Burchett speaking at Tuesday's hearing of the House Government Efficiency Subcommittee, the hearing focusing on the curatorial policies of the Smithsonian institutions. One witness saying the museum's leadership aims to teach the public about, quote, American wickedness.
To see the world in terms of power dynamics, who has dominance, and how to wrest it from them by dismantling the American narrative. This is deeply Marxist and Gramscian.
The hearing draws from a report released by the White House Domestic Policy Council, and it's entitled Saving America's Story, How Ideological Capture at the Smithsonian Institution's National Museum of American History Erases Our Heritage. According to the report, significant artifacts such as George Washington's uniform and Thomas Jefferson's desk were not displayed with due prominence, despite this year being America's 250th anniversary. The report says that instead, the Smithsonian Museum puts the spotlight on gender identity and drag queens while rejecting patriotism and a mindset that puts America first.
You have pictures of bondage. You have some overtly sexual things up there. Ma'am, do you think that's appropriate? Do you think that is appropriate for a child to see?
Anthea Hartig, director of the Smithsonian's American History Museum, responding to the White House report, saying that the museum inspires patriotism without instructing it. The report, though, saying that the Smithsonian is doing the exact opposite. and has, quote, traded settled truths and basic history for political activism and division. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Fiona G., NTD News.
President Trump is taking another step to reduce U.S. reliance on China for defense production. On Monday, he signed an executive order making it much harder for military contractors to use Chinese suppliers for the critical materials that are used in weapon systems. NTD's Tiffany Meyer has that story.
The order tightens rules for contractors seeking waivers to buy materials from China and other restricted foreign suppliers. Instead, the administration wants companies to source those materials domestically or from allied nations. Contractors will now have to prove they've made exhaustive efforts to find alternatives. The Pentagon says defense contractors will be required to provide detailed information about their supply chains, from raw materials to finished weapon systems, and outline a plan to phase out prohibited suppliers. The goal is to identify foreign risks and reduce dependence on Chinese suppliers ahead of any potential future conflict. The order also calls for reviews of suppliers for foreign ownership, financial vulnerabilities, and manufacturing risks. Companies that fail to comply or mislead the government could face penalties or even lose defense contracts.
And what do Americans think about the possibility of making daylight savings time permanent? NTD's Sam Wong was out on the National Mall in D.C. to hear from the people.
What are your thoughts on the possibility of making daylight savings permanent?
Totally all for it. Let's make it happen. Not have to worry about, shifting back an hour, going forward an hour, then your sleep schedule, work, and all that, I just feel like it makes everything uniform and smooth,
I think it's a great idea because I don't like the time change. It messes with me.
You farmers, stop being selfish. You farmers are just going to have to work later into the night.
It's for the animal, they said.
For the animals.
Fundamentally, I'm not in favor of it, but if the Congress passes it so that it comes into the hands of the states to decide for themselves, then I'll be okay with that. There is a very real aspect of when you don't get enough sunlight, if you're up early enough or late enough, it does wear on you.
I mean, there's 2 states, I believe, Arizona don't have daylight savings time. Then, we coordinate with other countries and stuff, and it's like, they're like, oh, you're daylight savings time, you're not daylight savings time. It's so confusing. So it's better to just keep it standard, and that's the worldwide standard.
The state of Indiana, for example, does it county by county. So I ran cross country in college and undergrad, and we used to have races in Indiana, for example, and we'd sometimes either be an hour early or an hour late for the race. So it's very confusing. So I think just unifying it would be very good.
With the way states are, it doesn't make sense with the Arizona, changing time zones, but I think also if you go to Alaska, daylight savings doesn't make sense because there isn't really daylight to save. And in Hawaii, there's not a point of saving daylight, and in New Mexico, you don't even need to save daylight. It's the same as Arizona. You're just going to get cooked either way.
Do you have a preference between permanent standard time versus daylight saving time, which is down?
Daylight savings.
I hate when it gets dark at 5 o'clock. Don't you? It sucks in the winter. It's depressing, too. It's a real thing, seasonal depression. Who wants it to be dark at 5 o'clock?
I would rather have standard time. I think it would make it simpler for planning purposes, and also, we're not an agrarian economy anymore. We need to adapt to the fact that this is the 21st century and not the 19th.
But you were fine with keeping daylight savings permanent also, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I like it staying lighter out later during the day, and you get more things done. It's not getting dark at 4:30, 5 o'clock anymore.
You get off of work at 5 or 6 o'clock, you don't want to be driving home in the dark, right? You still want to have some light, drive home, you can still enjoy a little bit of the evening, so longer days is better.
For me, one time, I don't care which way it is, one time, stop changing it. There's actually health reasons as well. People have heart attacks when they change the times in the springtime and stuff. So one time, please, Congress, please, President Trump, sign that thing into law.
Coming up, Spain celebrates winning the FIFA World Cup. Ferran Torres, who scored the winning goal off the bench, sporting a hat that reads, "Make Spain Great Again."